The NFL draft is tomorrow, so that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, where we're going to be going through my first round mock draft and doing a little discussion about it on today's episode of The Home Turf. Welcome to the Home Turf Podcast, your podcast for some daily ball knowledge, with your host, YouTuber B Money, aka me. He is the best player in the NFL, the biggest frauds in the whole NFL. They are by far worse than the Browns. Welcome to the Home Turf Podcast, everybody. It's episode 3. I'm your host, Brandon, your favorite injury-prone YouTuber. And you heard today we're going to be talking about the NFL draft. So, man, draft is tomorrow. I could not be more excited. My goodness, I'm just so hyped. This is episode 3, but we did film an episode way back during free agency when we talked about the Saints in free agency, what they should do in the draft, and I did that with a special guest, but that video sadly was corrupted, so we're going to be probably re-recording it and talking about something else at some point, but stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we're going to be discussing the NFL draft. So honestly, we're in school, right? These past like couple months, I've been mock drafting like every class period in school. I'm just so excited. I just really hope that this is how the draft turns out. Today, I finally decided to do my official first round final mock draft. So let's just honestly get right into that. We're going to be going through the picks, and then we're going to be explaining why I think they should go there. So this is how the 2026 NFL draft first round should go. No trades, just straight up picks. Let's get right into it. With the first pick, we're going with Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. This is simple. The Raiders take Fernando Mendoza. They need a QB. They've built up a good O-line around him. Next, they can get receivers in the later rounds, but I think this is the perfect spot to draft Mendoza. The Jets select Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. He's the best linebacker, best defensive player in this draft, without a doubt. And he'll be able to sit behind one of the best linebackers of our generation, Demario Davis. Sit behind him, that would be a perfect situation for him. Next, the Cardinals go offensive tackle Francis Moaga. I don't really know how to say his name, so that's my bad. But this is simple. They need a tackle for their next future franchise guy, which could be in this draft or could be in the next one. I guess we'll see. Up next, the Tennessee Titans select Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. He's just such a beast, and, they have a big-name guy in Tony Pollard, but I don't think he is the guy. He's not performing like a big-name running back should. Next, the New York Giants select Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State. This is the second linebacker out of Ohio State, but they would be so foolish to pass up on this guy. I know some people could say they need a wide receiver. They need this and this. No, they don't. They need Sonny Styles right here. Next, the Cleveland Browns select Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. This is pretty simple pick. They need a wide receiver. Carnell Tate is by far the best receiver in this draft. A stat that I really like about him is they compare him a lot to George Pickens. George Pickens in college had like a 65% contested catch percentage. Carnell Tate has an 85%. Carnell Tate will be a great weapon for Shedeur Sanders if they decide to start him, or if they go to Sean Watson, still an amazing weapon to help the Browns rebuild, which they've been doing for a really long time now. Next, the Washington Commanders select David Bailey, edge out of Texas Tech. Their starting end right now is Von Miller, and Von Miller's a big name, but he's very washed up. He's a veteran. You got to get probably the best defensive end in a while. Next up, the Saints take Ruben Bain, edge out of Miami. I think they go Ruben Bain here, and because simply without Carnell Tate, they should not go wide receiver. I do not think that Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson are worth the 8th pick. We can leave them to go to some other teams, but right now I think that Ruben Bain is the best. He'll replace Cam Jordan and go crazy alongside Chase Young. And I think there's a lot of wide receiver value in the second and third round, so I think that would be a perfect place for the Saints to select their guy. So right now they're going to go with Ruben Bain. Next, the Chiefs select Mansour Delane, corner out of LSU. They traded away their 2 starting corners, so they're going to need the guy to replace them, and Mansour Delane is the best corner in this draft. So I think that's where they got to go. I know people could also argue wide receiver or defensive end, but also there is defensive end value towards the end of this first round, and the Chiefs have a second first-round pick. So why not get the best corner and then get the third or fourth best defensive end? I think that sounds perfect. So up next, the Giants select Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. To be honest, I did not have Caleb Downs falling this far in lots of my drafts, but on this final one, I think he does. I think all the teams ahead of him get their guy, and honestly, I don't think any of the teams ahead of him could really use a safety this bad until he gets to the Giants. You know, the Giants and the Bengals did their trade with Dexter Lawrence. Some people say they lost that trade. Some people say they won. I'm just going to put it this way. I think Caleb Downs, as a young rookie safety who's probably the best prospect safety that we've had in a very long time, the Bengals passing up on him is kind of crazy, and I do think they lost that trade. Even though Dexter Lawrence is amazing run blocker or run stuffer and even, getting to the quarterback when they're passing the ball, I still think this is a loss because Caleb Downs is just such an amazing talent. So next up, the Miami Dolphins select Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Just look at their wide receiver room. I'll put it right here. What is it? Mike Washington? It's like Malik Washington, Tutu Atwell. I think he's from the Jalen Tolbert, maybe. But their wide receiver room's looking like a straight XFL team, CFL team. So we're going to go ahead and get them their number one guy. I think Mekhi Lemon is the perfect pick right here. Up next, the Dallas Cowboys take Jermod McCoy, corner out of Tennessee. I know there's been a lot of concern with his injury, but I mean, if you go and just watch his tape, when this dude is healthy, he is probably... he's on the same level as Mansour Delane, but I think the injuries push him back down to number 12. But this dude is a dog, and I think that the Cowboys really need a corner that can step up and make these big plays. And Jermod McCoy is pretty big body corner too, so he's not going to be easy to go up and catch jump balls against. So I think this is perfect for the Cowboys. I know the injury's scary, but I don't think I'm too worried about it. I think I still like him at 12. At 13, I have the Los Angeles Rams taking Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon. I think this is kind of a surprise, but if we look at their tight end room, Tyler Higbee is a little washed up. No, not a little. He's definitely washed up. Tyler Higbee should not, I think the best way to get this team to the next level, get them back to that Super Bowl, they have the wide receivers, have the running back, they have their quarterback for 1 or 2 more years, and I think that getting a crazy tight end prospect like Kenyon Sadiq would just completely transform that offense and take them right to the Super Bowl. They got their corners. They have good safeties. Maybe linebackers could be kind of a question, but Kenyon Sadiq would transform that offense even more than it already is. So I think they should still go Kenyon Sadiq at 13. Next, the Baltimore Ravens take Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. They get the guy to replace Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, I think there's a famous quote that's like, nobody's double teaming Zay Flowers. So Jordan Tyson, I know there's some concern with his injuries, but if you look at this guy, I think that he's probably the second best prospect in the draft, or wide receiver prospect in the draft. The only reason I have Mekhi Lemon getting selected ahead of him is because of the health issues, but I think the Baltimore Ravens get an absolute steal with Jordan Tyson at 14. At 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Kendrick Falk, defensive end out of Auburn. Tampa really hasn't had a pass rush since JPP when they went to the Super Bowl in 2021. Even though they lost Mike Evans, he is replaceable in rounds 2 and 3. They do not need to reach here. Kendrick Falk is their best option. At 16, with the Jets' second pick in the first round, they go with Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. Since we don't go wide receiver at 2, we are taking the best available at 16. Having 2 good wide receivers on this team is very important as they try to pull off the world's longest rebuild of all time. Next, at 17, the Detroit Lions take Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. With Fano projected to be a top 10 pick, having him fall to 17 makes him a no doubt for the Lions. Up next, the Minnesota Vikings select Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. Even though Harrison Smith is returning for another year, he is definitely old and washed. He's been there, done that, but it's time for him to see his way out. He's a great veteran to sit behind, or to have a rookie sit behind him. At 19, the Carolina Panthers select Kevin Concepcion, or Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. If you're the Panthers, you ultimately want Kenyon Sadiq, but with the Rams picking him, he is the next best option. The Panthers lost a game against the Rams in the playoffs because of a dropped pass. That first down, kind of a no-name wide receiver dropped it. With Concepcion, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Concepcion perfectly complements Ted McMillan, who's a big body wide receiver, but he's still young and is still prone to getting locked up by some good corners. The pick gives Bryce Young a second read that he hasn't really had before. Nobody's really throwing to Adam Thielen, washed up Adam Thielen as their second read. Like, if I was Bryce Young, if I saw Ted McMillan, I'd just throw it up. I wouldn't even look at my second read. But now he would have two insane wide receivers to completely elevate this offense. At 20, with their second pick in the first round, the Dallas Cowboys select Akeem Messidor, defensive end out of Miami. After trading arguably the best pass rusher in the league, Micah Parsons, the Cowboys struggle to get any pass rush against QBs on opposing teams, and Akeem Messidor is the perfect guy to replace him. I think that's their best option. At 21, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Monroe Freeland, offensive tackle out of Georgia. To be honest, I don't really know what the Steelers need other than a replacement QB for Aaron Rodgers, which they can get later in the draft, but also, do we even know if Aaron Rodgers is coming back? If he does, do you take a QB? I don't think so. If he doesn't, do you take a QB? I say yes, but later on, when you can get a guy like Drew Allar, and they still have the quarterback from Ohio State from last year that they drafted, and they really haven't shown him any love. So honestly, if they want, they could start him and not even have to go QB. So this is why I picked Monroe Freeland, because every team could use a good offensive tackle. I think he's the best one available. At 22, the Los Angeles Chargers select Ilavega Loney. I butchered that. I am so Loney. Ilave guard out of Penn State. I really apologize for butchering that. I should have looked up how to say it. I'm sorry. This one's pretty self-explanatory, though. Justin Herbert was running for his life. Oh, man, I feel so bad for Herbert. I had him on my fantasy team, and there were lots of games that he underperformed just because his line could not stop letting people through. So we're going to take the best lineman on the board, guard out of Penn State. He's the guy to fill that. At 23, the Philadelphia Eagles take Caden Proctor, offensive tackle out of Alabama. The Eagles have straight veterans on their O-line, so a rookie coming in to sit behind some of these guys, learn, create some depth, and then potentially become the starter this season would be a great pick for the Eagles. At 24, the Cleveland Browns select Blake Miller, offensive tackle out of Clemson, with their second first-round pick. Most people think they should get Spencer Fontenot at 6, but you cannot pass up on Carnell Tate if you can get a guy like Blake Miller at pick 24. With the loss of Wyatt Teller, Blake Miller will be a day one start and the perfect candidate to protect Shedeur Sanders and block for Quinshon Judkins. I think that'll change their offense and help with this rebuild immensely. At 25, the Chicago Bears select Peter Woods, defensive tackle out of Clemson. That's 2 back-to-back Clemson players. But while they still have Grady Jarrett, they're still holding the position there, but there are concerns with depth and availability. Also, any other need the Bears would have would be a reach in the first round. They can sit back and relax, wait for the second round to really transform their team. At 26, I have the Buffalo Bills selecting Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. Since the days of Stephon Diggs, the Buffalo Bills have had their fair share of small wide receivers for screenplays. Khalil Shakur, Brandon Cooks, Curtis Samuel. They hope to change the formula with Keon Coleman, but he is not turning out to be that guy. So I think drafting Boston makes up for their past mistake and gives Josh Allen a guy he can just close his eyes and throw it up to. And most likely make that catch versus the Broncos. Even though Brandon Cooks made that catch, he still probably could have won them the game if they had a 6'3", 6'4" wide receiver like Denzel Boston that could actually go over top of the corner and not have to fight for the ball at the same level as the corner. If Denzel Boston goes up high points that, the corner's not getting anywhere near that. Yes, he could technically drop it, but I still think that he makes that play, and the Bills go on to play in the AFC Championship. Even with the DJ Moore trade, I still think this is the right move. There's nothing wrong with having 2 great wide receivers. I mean, you see it, the Eagles with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. You see it with the Bengals, with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, the Cowboys, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. All of those teams have amazing offenses. So what's wrong with letting Josh Allen, literally the best player in the league, have a good wide receiving core? Not just one guy, not just two, but now three. DJ Moore, Khalil Shakur, and Denzel Boston. I think that is lethal, and I think this is absolutely the right pick for the Buffalo Bills. At pick 27, the 49ers select Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle out of Utah. 49ers are an interesting team because they have one of the best all-around teams, but they are always injured. So I went with great depth here because, to be honest, other than they added Mike Evans, which I guess it fills the wide receiver position, but I think they can also get wide receivers later in the second, third round. But let's just hope their team stays healthy, and I think Caleb Lomu would be perfect. At 28, the Houston Texans select Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. At first, the obvious pick was an offensive tackle, but after signing Wyatt Teller, this is the smartest move. McDonald would be a crazy addition to an insane D-line with really good DNs in Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, but a weaker interior. So this is the best way to make the Texans literally be the most feared team in the whole league. Next, at 29, the Kansas City Chiefs used their second first-round pick to select T.J. Parker, defensive end out of Clemson. The Chiefs had a very solid pass rush, but with a defense full of veterans, Parker would be a perfect addition along with Delane to take the Chiefs right back to the playoffs. No more missing out. They're going straight to the first seed. This is my prediction. And they're going to make it to the divisional or championship or Super Bowl. You can't ever know with Mahomes. At pick 30, the Miami Dolphins select Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. Corner was their most needed position before they decided to trade away Jalen Waddle for who knows what reason. But it makes perfect sense that they take the super underrated corner at pick 30. Pick 31, the New England Patriots select Cassius Howell, defensive end out of Texas A&M. The Patriots had zero pass rush presence last year. They were not scary on defense at all other than at corner. And that's one of the main reasons they ended up losing the Super Bowl. Even though you could argue they need to go offensive tackle, I felt like Cassius Howell was a better value than the best offensive tackle on the board. So that's why I went with him. And with the last pick in the first round, the Seattle Seahawks select Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. After Reek Woolen departed in free agency, the only need the Seahawks have is corner. I mean, Colton Hood is literally the best available at 32, so I just went with that. But the Seahawks have the best roster in the league, so there's not much they can really do. Like, they literally went to the Super Bowl. They have the best rosters for sure. Maybe they could get another wide receiver, but, like, not really. JSN is good enough to carry that team. So let's replace their corner one, get him a new guy. Colton Hood is perfect. And that's how I think the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft should go. If you have any comments or questions you want to ask me, make sure to leave them in the comments. Maybe I can do a Q&A episode where you ask me about my favorite teams, ask me about what I think about this, what I think about this, what my take is on this. I think that would be really great. So leave your questions in the comments. And also, you could leave a comment and tell me how this first round went. If you disagree with it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching this first round. I know it's kind of quick, and I just thought I'd get this out on draft day. So hopefully this video gets out by then. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next podcast, episode 4. Dang, we're getting crazy on this home turf. Yep, thank you guys for all the love, though. And I'll see you later. Peace.